All right, welcome to the Ride the Pig Show, where we teach and coach business owners to ride the pig. PIG stands for Passive Income Generator. These are lessons I learned while working on a pig farm, living on a pig farm for about 10 years. So this is our very first podcast on this, so it's going to be an introduction will be needed. I'm John Tarn with Xtreme Marketing. This is to help business owners and their families be the best that they can possibly be. I wrote a book called Ride the Pig, God is My Investor here, and that is lessons I learned on a pig farm. So as we move forward with this podcast, what we're going to be doing is interviewing people that are in different stages of their lives so that they can help us all be better and get some passive income going. So I grew up on a pig farm. That's why I wrote this book, and these are lessons that I learned on there. So basically, I'm going to give you a little backstory of my life. So growing up at about 8 years old, moved to a pig farm with my family. I've got there's five of us. I got two brothers, two sisters. My father was a Navy pilot, flew for Air America, went over to Vietnam and Thailand. My mother was a nurse. They met in Pensacola, Florida, and I'll hit that history at a later time. But from there, we all went to Thailand. I was about 6 weeks old when I went over there with my siblings, and it was a great experience for us. We were there for about 2.5, 3 years. When I came back, I was speaking a little Thai, so I had some speech impediments going on with that. So I went through some speech therapy, and to help me, I couldn't say my SPs for some reason in Thai language. I don't know if there's SPs, but I couldn't say my SPs, so I went through that. From there, coming back, we went to State College, and that's where my dad got his degree in, I believe it was forestry, so at Penn State. And that was another fun time for my siblings and I, having a mother and father that was so fantastic. Growing up there, we could do anything we wanted. And then my dad decided he wanted to own a farm. So he buys a farm in Ohio and brings his family there. And on that farm is a lot of lessons I've learned. So that's where I'm going to start most of this, where we're at on that. So 8 years old, go to the farm. And we had an amazing family. And my oldest brother and I, basically we could do whatever we wanted. We had motorcycles. We farmed about 1,000 acres. We owned 311 acres. We ended up with 3 farms in total at one point. 2 of them we were leasing out, and then our main farm, which was 311 acres. But we ended up farming about 1,000 acres, hay, corn, soybeans. We had cows, milk cows. We had about 2,500 pigs, and that's where the book comes from, our pig farm. So 2,500 pigs, which taught us a lot of lessons. I learned my passive income generation from that, which I'm going to be sharing with you. And on that farm, it taught us to get up early, work hard, make sure we're having fun while we're doing it, enjoy the process. And so that's what I do every day in our business, which is Xtreme Marketing. I actually own a marketing company, which is a full service event marketing services company, where we do everything that's needed with the events, all the way from the design, the printing, fabrication, logistics, running events. We also do the printing for shirts, hats, everything you're going to need for your event. So this is where I'm at now, and this all started out on a pig farm. So on that pig farm, so we would get up early. We'd have to feed the pigs. My dad would go off to reserves. He was in Naval Reserves at this time. So my brother and I would have to get up early, feed the pigs, 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m., and then we go to school. Well, typically when we went to school, we still had pig manure on us. So we would have pig manure on our boots. This is where we learned to socialize, I would say, and move through life even with adversity. So we would have mud on our shoes. We're going to school to get an education. My challenge was education system wasn't fast enough for me. So when I was in high school, it was really tough because of the education system. It was just a little too slow for me, which I found out later in the Navy, which I'll explain to you about that. So on that pig farm, my first lesson really with passive income generation was actually I was in FFA. My brother had been in FFA before me, and what he did was you're required to do something to make money in the FFA, whether it's raising some crops or livestock or something. My brother chose a cornfield, which he did good with that, is on the back 40 there. And so he did that, and I decided to do something different. So I wanted to raise pigs. So my dad gave me a proposition. He said, "What pig do you want? You can pick your pig." So I had to buy a pig. So I looked at all the pigs out there. There were little pigs, there were big pigs, there were boars, there were sows. I decided to buy a pig for my dad that she was already pregnant. And this is where I get my passive income generation from. So she was already pregnant. So I knew that she would multiply the money or herself, which would create passive income for me down the road. So I picked the sow that had baby, who was going to have babies, and nurtured her, fed her, took care of her. And then down the road, sure enough, she had piglets. And I think I had about 8 to 10 piglets that I got from that. And then what I did is I raised those little piglets so that they could be sold off. And we sold them off as feeder pigs. And I ended up making about $3,600 from that transaction, which was just the late 70s, early 80s, which is pretty darn good for a kid. So $3,600, put that in my bank account, and that lasted me for a long time. Well, shortly after this process was taking place, Reaganomics kind of affected our family. So what happened there is we ended up losing our farm, and with savings and loans, starting to call loans and everything. There was a loan my dad had made, taken out, which required to be paid back in 30 days, which typically one of these loans is 15 to 30 years. But they called the loan, which we couldn't cover. So we went into emergency mode. We're selling all kinds of stuff. We're selling hay to make money. We're milking cows to make money, whatever it takes. So this is where I started to see how to handle challenges, really big challenges. And this was a difficult time for our family. The only people that were there at this time was my mom, my dad, my younger brother Lee, and myself. So I had to become a man at that time. So I was somewhere around 15, 16 when this started happening. So a lot of growing up. So there were times where my dad would say, "Hey, John, you got this. You're going to have to milk the cows." So I wouldn't go to school, and I would milk the cows. The challenge is I was milking them by myself. There were like 86 cows. And I had cows running all over the place. They were running everywhere. I'm having to chase them down, get them, milk them. It would end up taking me all darn day to milk the cows. My dad at this time had gone into a challenging period in his life, so he needed some help. So that's why I stepped in to do that. But we ended up having to sell the farm, and then I ended up having to move us. So my sister and brother-in-law were not too far from us in Pennsylvania. Our farm was actually located in Ohio. So I got a dump truck and started loading everything in, and we took the stuff to my sister's place, and we put it in the basement. And this was a process that I ended up basically having the lead on there. My brother-in-law, Mike, would help me quite a bit as well. But pretty much it was myself and Mike doing all the work, getting us moved. Once we moved and we left the farm, we were basically homeless, so we needed to go somewhere. So we went to Alabama. And Alabama is some more learning for me. I moved there. I think I was 17 or so, or close to 17. And my dad was, reeling from what had just happened. So he ended up going on the road and he wasn't there. My mom takes a job in nursing, 12-hour shifts. So she's not around during the day at all. So basically I was left to help raise my little brother, Lee. And Lee and I had a lot of experiences, a lot of good ones, unsupervised ones, but we also had a lot of challenging ones where we barely had enough food, and we'd take one apple to school, a chippy choppy ham sandwich, and a little Debbie. And that would have to last a whole day. And we're growing boys, working out, doing all that stuff. So we'd have to kind of each period we have to eat one thing. I try and make the meal last the whole day. So I was usually hungry. So my dad ends up getting going in business with a friend of his from Vietnam and Thailand, which was his best friend, which my dad actually had saved his life, which we found out years later on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. They got shot down in a helicopter. They weren't sure they were shot down or their rice that they were transporting was had a bomb in it. They're not sure what really happened, but they ended up going down, and Jim Hope was his name, became my dad's best friend. So they go into business. My dad's doing a map route that's on the East Coast, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina. Well, we got to move because he's got to get a central location. So we moved to North Carolina. So in North Carolina, we homestead there in a solar house, get there. I start in one high school, and I'm there for probably just a month or two, and then we move again. So I go to another high school not too far from there, and that's where I end up graduating high school from. I was the middle of the pack in high school as far as grades and all of that. Don't even know how I achieved that because I don't think I studied. I didn't know how to study. But the good thing is I started realizing that I did have some competencies. I started getting A's in math and doing really good in my classes. So it started giving me confidence in that. And the challenge was I didn't know what studying was. So I started learning how to do that. And in my high school experience, I almost didn't graduate. So I had an English class, and I'll never forget this lady's name. I'm not going to say it on here, but I read in her class all the time. It was an English literature class. And I'm a big believer in reading. Reading and books actually have saved my life several times because of the knowledge I've gained from them and just being able to absorb what's in there and other people's experiences. So I'd always read a book in her class. So I'd have the English lit book up here like this in front of me, and then my book would be inside. She was always yelling at me, quit reading in an English lit class, but she was always yelling at me, quit reading. So it comes to the end of the school year, and I'm not even sure if I'm going to graduate because of this one class, the English lit class. So normally seniors don't have to take the test, but I did because my grade in the class wasn't that good because I never paid attention. So I take the class, and I still don't know if I passed or not. And this is at the end of the year. And so I need to call her and see if I pass, if I'm going to graduate. And so I'm like, Dad, could you do that for me? So my dad actually calls her up and says, hey, did John pass the class? And she's like, yes, he got an A. And even if he hadn't gotten an A, he'd have passed because anybody that reads that much deserves to pass class. So I did pass, but she goes, but there's one caveat to this. He has to graduate with this class. He has to go there. And now this is like on the day of graduation, and I've got like 30 minutes to an hour to get there to graduate. So I'm like, oh my gosh. So I get on my motorcycle. I've got cutoff jean shorts on, and I've got a tank top on. And I get on my motorcycle. I head to the school. I come up, and everybody is lined up to graduate outside. They're going into the auditorium. They're in the middle of it. I pull up. Everybody's directed me over here to get behind there. Park my motorcycle, come out, got my cutoff jeans on, tank top. And the teacher was there, and she's like helping me out. She goes, well, the good thing was Tarn is my last name. So John Tarn, and that starts with T. So I'm at the last, close to the end of the line. So that gave me time. Well, so what we did is waited for, so I didn't have a cap and gown. So I waited till the first people graduated. Person came off the stage, grabbed their cap and gown, got into line, and ended up graduating. And my brother Mark was there, and possibly my little brother, I'm not sure, but they're all, you got it, you did it, as I was walking through there to graduate. So that was a really good experience. From there, I ended up going into college, and I took welding. But I didn't just do welding. I took college parallel as well. So any welding technical piece, I did the college equivalent to it for the math and all that. So then I ended up having to tutor the other welders on all their math. So this is all building up my confidence as we go in school, because remember, back in high school was not the best experience for me. I'd either get an A or I'd get an F in high school, because it all had to do with studying, and I didn't study. So I either knew it from just being in class or I didn't. So it was always up and down, up and down. So that first college experience starts getting me realizing that I do have some brains up here and knowing what I'm doing. So I became a mentor basically to the other welders, because I was taking college classes and was able to help them out with all their other classes. So I did really well in the welding. I ended up with a degree in that. When I got out, I went and started welding, making water stoves. Still didn't know what I wanted to do. So I've been looking at underwater welding in Houston, Texas. I was going to go there. I was pretty much all set up to do that. And my dad's like, hey, go in the Navy. It's free. You can get your welding and do all that, be an underwater welder in the Navy for nothing. So I'm like, okay, well, might as well. So I joined the Navy, and I was supposed to go in on a buddy program with my brother, because through that process, we wanted to be SEALs. And when I'm ready to go, we're ready to go, all of a sudden he can't go. So much for the buddy program. I ended up going in by myself and to that experience. And mind you, it's really the first time I'd really been totally away from my family on my own. So I fly out to San Diego, go through basic, and then I go into BEE, which is basic electricity and electronics. And basic electricity and electronics is exactly what it sounds like. It's your basics. It's your theories on how electronics work. It's the mathematics, all of that behind it. So in BEE, they actually had what's called self-paced learning, which is something new to me. I'd never seen it before. So basically, they would give you a big textbook, give it to you. There are cubicles. Seem like hundreds of guys in those cubicles. You just grab a cubicle and you study. You go take the test, take your practicals. For some reason, I excelled at this because it was self-paced learning. So I could go as fast as I wanted. So I devoured those books, just went through them, took the test, got dopamine hits by doing this, kind of like scrolling on your phones now. So I would get these dopamine hits by taking these tests. And I did really good. And I got an accommodation from the commanding officer at our training command. So I ended up being in top 1% of that for the training. And that's when I started saying, hey, wow, now I'm starting to get this learning stuff, and this knowledge is really important. But there's different ways. And mine was self-paced learning. And that's where I really excelled there. So then I came out of the Navy, and I ended up getting an electronics engineering degree from UNC Charlotte. And in that's another lesson I learned. So while I was in my college career there, I started my own business. And that business was a kind of a spin-off from what my dad was doing. I took his map routes up in Virginia, North Carolina, and then I created a company where I would put stickers into convenience stores and gas stations. And I put them in under consignment. And then I'd come by once a month and I would collect the money. This was creating passive income for me. So I would just put them in, and that money would come in there. And each month, you keep creating passive income for me, help me get through college, pay for my college career. And I developed more on top of what the couple I brought over from my father. I ended up building that business into more and more places, and to the point where actually, when I graduated, I actually thought, well, should I do this as a living? I decided not to. And I got a job with a company that was contracting into the PGA Tour to do scoreboards and technical support and scoring for the PGA Tour. And what this entailed is driving 18-wheelers and setting up scoreboards and taking care of all the electronics, all the wireless systems, all of that stuff. So ended up graduating top of my class on the 18-wheeler semi truck driving. So I had a knack for that, probably from the farm, driving large tractors, combines, and everything there, and dump trucks, obviously. So I'd already had lots of experience to do that. So I started doing that with the PGA Tour, and I'm an innovator. So with that, I helped create one of the very first wireless systems for the PGA Tour, and this was in the early 90s. So, and then all the scoring systems started building on top of that. So when I got out there, what we had to do is we had to lay Cat5 fiber optics and computer networks out on the golf courses, and that would go out all hospitalities and to television, so they get their feeds. Well, it took them basically a small army to lay this Cat5 everywhere, because you had to lay the cables everywhere all over the golf course. So I thought there was a better way, so I started developing a wireless system, and I worked with IBM a little bit on this and another company, and I actually brought all the technology together and had to trick the software so that we could do this. So we could actually make a server on a laptop, which there weren't any servers, laptops out at that time. It's the early 90s. So we actually created a server laptop, which could be placed anywhere on course, and then I could connect other computers wirelessly to it. So that freed us up from all of that. So we probably saved hundreds of thousands of man hours by doing that with the wireless. So we could, so in the past, what would happen is someone in hospitality say, hey, I want the computer over there, not here, but we'd already laid the Cat5. So we'd have to come in and relay all that Cat5 for that. Well, now we didn't have to do that. You just unplugged it, moved it, and there you go. So very innovative, and it made a huge difference with the PGA Tour, with the logistics piece of it and all of that. So working with that company, ended up being the number 2 person, handling their operations and technical support worldwide for the PGA Tour. Work within his business to create a better standards and operations within that company. He gave me a lot of flexibility to do that, and I'm eternally grateful to him for that, to give me that flexibility. It's something I try to do with our team here at Xtreme, is give them the flexibility to create their own futures based on that. It is something that a lot of people aren't used to. So when they actually get that freedom, they don't really know what to do with it. And that's something that it's my responsibility to help them, to coach them through that. Sometimes it is a learning curve. So once I was doing that, I ended up becoming a licensee with the PGA Tour in 2001. No, it wasn't 2001, it was 2005. In 2001, I started a company called Golf Sticker Incorporated. And the idea was to put stickers worldwide in basically Walmart. So that was the business plan, is to put it into Walmart. And they had like 3,600 stores. So I was already seeing the dollar signs on that, millions of dollars coming in before I even sold my first sticker. So to do that, I would need to get a licensing agreement with the PGA Tour. So I wrote up a business plan for it, to go in those 3,600 stores, presented it to the PGA Tour, and they liked the idea. And so I moved forward with the licensing agreement with the PGA Tour. And that was in 2005. Well, 2005, when I got the licensing agreement, I ended up leaving the company I was working for to go out on my own. So I went out with no money, no nothing, any of that, start my company. And at the same time, I was building a house, which my builders had gone out of business. So I was having to finish building the house. So January, I'm trying to start a new company. I've got licensing with PGA Tour, and I've got nobody to build my house. So I start building the house. My dad helps me out with that. He's always coming and helping me out on projects like that. So he helped me finish building the house. My sister, Karen, came to work with me in 2005 as well. I think around March or so. Once I finished with the house, I finished it in March, and we had an office upstairs. So in that office, my sister Karen and I sat here, she sat right there, and we looked at each other. And she had a desk there, I had a desk here, and I did calls, and she handled finances and everything, and strategizing with me, anything that we needed. She worked with me on that. And she did this without pay, by the way, and helped her brother out. And she's still with us today, and she's handling our operations, administrative operations now. So she was instrumental in helping me get that going. So we're out there, we're hitting it, and I'm going to Bentonville, Arkansas to get business with the PGA or with the Walmart. So I've met with Walmart probably 3 different times, meeting with their buyers in these big warehouses and everything to get on their shelf. And at that time, products I think had to at least sell $126 or something a day. For some reason, that sticks in my brain. So we finally get Walmart's like, yeah, I think we can do this. And so now I'm like, yes, I've got it. Well, I take it back to the PGA Tour, and PGA Tour decides, well, we don't want our brand in there right now. That's not what our strategy is. So I was like, holy moly. I said, my whole business plan is based on this strategy of 3,600 stores in Walmart. And they said, well, that's not where we want our brand right now. And so overnight, those plans had to be scrapped. So, but I still had the licensing agreement. So I headed off to the coast, North Carolina, South Carolina, and started selling to golf courses, door to door. Karen would go with me as well, and I would just walk in and pitch them, see if I could sell them. And during this time, my brother Mark had also invested in the business as well, so he was working with me. And we had a time where we went to Ponte Vedra, Florida, and I went to I think it was called the PGA Tour stop, to do some selling. So I go in there and I'm pitching, and Mark's out in the parking lot. Well, I get done with my pitch. I walk out, and Mark goes, hey, John, I just sold $5 magnet out here. I said, that is fantastic, Mark. He goes, how'd you do? I said, well, I just sold $5,000 worth in there. So he's like, well, that makes my $5 look so good. But the point is, when you got to get out there, you got to get out there, and you got to walk out there and walk into businesses and do some business. Eventually you've got to hit the pavement. And that's what we did. So I kept that business going, kept it going. And I ended up getting, so March, April, May, about June, I realized we weren't making enough money. So we had made like $40,000, $50,000, but the margins were so small that I couldn't sustain the business, couldn't sustain myself. So I started driving an 18-wheeler. Went out driving the 18-wheeler for, I don't know, about 6 months or so, but we barely had any money. And so here I am. I got my family at home, trying to take care of them, counting pennies. I was drinking tea to save money because I couldn't afford to go drink coffee. So I would drink tea because you get 100 tea bags for just $1 or so. And I would put them in a big thing of water, and I would go stop at the rest stops to get the water heated up, put my tea bag in it, drink it, just straight tea with nothing in it. And the thing, I would put so many tea bags in there that the thing would be full of tea bags. So I was trying to get everything out of them, that I'd put water in there, immediately suck all the water up. I barely have 2 swigs out of it. So, but the whole time that was happening at night, I was working on my laptop. I had rigged up a wireless modem with my experience with being able to do wireless, which I didn't mention. I ended up being a network engineer as well. So I handled computer networks and all of that, certified in that with Microsoft and Novell. So I used that to create a modem for myself, which I could do all my business in the back of the 18-wheeler. And this is 2005. So, all the technology that's out now was not out then, but it allowed me to do my business. So I kept doing the business. Every night I'm working, doing the business, selling, doing the business, just kind of keeping the thing going. So from driving that 18-wheeler, I started working with through a company that worked with Jack Daniels, doing their experiential marketing and driving their multi-million-dollar rigs or 18-wheelers and setting up experiences with the rigs, and also setting up huge tents, maybe 60 by 90 or 120 feet, We bring in crews of 13 or more. So leadership is involved in all of this, being able to get to execute and get the job done. So that was all building my leadership, and kept traversing through that. I was with them for probably 8 years or so. And during that time, I'm still running Golf Sticker Incorporated was the first business that was really successful. And there's several before that too. But so Golf Sticker Incorporated is the business that was doing the PGA Tour decals. So still doing all of that while I'm doing that. During that time, when I had worked on the PGA Tour, I noticed there was a need for header panels for all their scoreboards. In professional golf, one of the biggest things is not having sound out there, things clanking around out there. Well, the header panels that were out there were made of aluminum. They were fabricated, and they weren't consistent, and they were heavy, and they were dangerous. And I knew this would be a problem, so I designed a header, a new type of header, which I patented, and I presented it to the tour. I believe it was 2009, and at the same time as I did that, I changed Golf Sticker Incorporated. We rebranded to Xtreme Marketing. Once I changed to Xtreme Marketing, people started getting it. But I presented that patent to the PGA Tour, and at that point, they're like, not sure if we need this or not. So I said, okay, well, I'll have it. I'll keep moving on with what I'm doing. So I went about doing what I was doing with my other stuff and decals and magnets and everything with PGA Tour, and picking up other jobs with them with some side panel decals that we're doing. Well, 2 years later, PGA Tour comes back to me and I said, "You still have that patent?" I said, "I sure do." And I said, "I'll tell you what, I will pay for it to be tested." I think we sent it out to California and to Hawaii to do testing on it. Worked out perfectly. So what had brought that about is, I believe actually in Hawaii, one of the old headers, someone was taking it down, and these things were really heavy, and you'd have to get on ladders to hold these things up. It's the advertising at the top of a scoreboard is what these are. And they would slide in, and one was taken out, and it sliced somebody's face, which was a huge liability for the PGA Tour. Not safe for people operating them, and these things were loud, so if the wind kicked up, they would rattle. Our new system was super lightweight. You could hold one hand, slide it in, duplicatable, and quiet, which was essential. So it worked out perfectly. So we started producing the headers for PGA Tour, and then we came up with a system for their footers, designed a footer system, and then it went into side panels. And today we do a lot of stuff with the PGA Tour. They're a great partner of ours, and we provide solutions for them. We've got some huge wide format printers to do this that are 8 feet wide, lasers, full fabrication shop to do all of this, that all materialize from all of that. 2014, my dad passed away, and 2015, I went full on with Xtreme Marketing in the event space. We got an Airstream, modified it out, started doing events with it. And then we started just building out assets, Airstreams, different platforms, trailers that we could take around and do events. And we started doing trade show displays, building custom trade show displays. So all of that just kept building. And with all that, we're really firm believers in speed. And it's usually how we get our clients is being able to do something faster than anybody else can do it, or something people think are impossible. We make it happen. And so with that, we got several multi-billion-dollar clients. So we do full service event marketing with them, all the way from building the assets, designing the assets, printing whatever's needed, routing, fabricating, welding, and then we handle logistics as well. So once we've built something for a client, we now will get it there for them. We'll run the event for them, set it up, and we'll bring it back and store it. And that's where we are currently with what we're doing. We're actually doing a lot more signage as well. So we do channel letter signs and all of that. So that's a little bit of my history. I've got an amazing wife. Her name's Betsy. Has been my partner since we were married in 95, but we were in college together. I actually met her in psychology class. And so here I am. I like to challenge myself. So in class, I'm trying to make it through the whole psychology class without using a book. Here I am, this guy that loves to read books, but for some reason, I like to challenge myself. So I'm trying to make it through the whole class without a book. So I'm in psychology class there, and I always sit at the front of the row. That's another hack for you. If you're in class, sit at the front of the row. There's something about the energy that you're going to get off of the instructor and the being interactive. For me, it's really about I've got to be doing something. So if I'm in the back of the class, I'm more likely just to be thinking about something else. If I'm in the front, it forces me to interact more. So I'm sitting there, and it's the final day. It's our final, and the teacher goes, "This is going to be an open book test." So I'm like, "Oh gosh, here I don't even have a book, and it's going to be an open book test." So I'm like, "Okay, well, I'll just do what I can." I start taking a test. Well, Betsy, she sits behind me, back to my left, back here, and she gets done with her test. And on the way out, she drops off her book and her notes for me. So the rest is kind of history from there. Then we started dating and ended up married. And then we've got two amazing boys, JT and Trenton, who I love dearly. And great boys, been involved in the business since they're little babies. So they're learning all about P&Ls and balance sheets and marketing and branding, everything. They can go out and do events and do just about anything in the company. So, and then I've got an amazing family. So I got two brothers, Lee and Mark, and two sisters, Karen and Sherry. They're all amazing individuals, and my mother, who leads the pack. We call her the mothership. We're to our current place in the world right now. So we are looking to build a $150 million company. And the reason I'm doing this podcast is really to coach other business owners to create passive income generation, to ride the pig, if you will. You got to learn how to ride the pig, and pigs aren't so easy to ride. So when we were younger, what we used to do is we try to put saddles on the pigs, and we'd see how far we could ride them. And it never worked out that well, but it was always fun. Really, there's a better way to ride the pig, and that's really bareback. And you just put your heels in the back of the pig, squeeze tightly, and go for it. And that's kind of like riding a pig in life. You gotta dig your heels in, and you gotta have a strategy. You gotta start doing the actions it's going to take to get that passive income. And my definition of passive income is really, it is incoming, any incoming flow. So it could be money, it could be love, it could be respect, it could be security, anything that's incoming. So if I've got a relationship and I want passive income from that, I'm going to have to put something into that relationship so that I get whatever I need out of that relationship, whether it's love, security, whatever it is. And then it's also money as well. So you want some passive income coming in so that you can have the life that you want. You can't always work for every dollar on an hourly basis, because you'll never get to where you need to be. And number two, you won't be able to take off ever if you're always dependent on your straight labor on this stuff. So that's what passive income generation is all about. And I think that concludes this show. Welcome to Ride the Pig Show here. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. We're going to be bringing on guests throughout. This one here was probably the most, I don't know if I should say it, but probably the slowest. You may not enjoy this one as much, but you will enjoy the next ones. With that, signing out.